Chapter 1. What is Mysticism? People who are curious about the mystical way of thinking often face many questions from others. Some ask with enthusiasm, some out of curiosity, and some with disapproval. What is mysticism, really? When these curious folks are told to read books written by mystics, or other works that seem to explain it, they say they can't understand these books at all. On the flip side, if you're genuinely curious about mysticism, you'll encounter many people who claim to know the answer, but their responses can be confusing and contradictory. They might say mysticism is a philosophy, an illusion, a type of religion, or even a sickness. Some say it's about having visions or doing magic tricks, while others think it's about living a lazy and self-centered life, ignoring responsibilities and getting lost in vague spiritual feelings. Some say it frees you from all rules and sometimes even morals. But paradoxically, it's also quite superstitious. One expert might say it's just a form of Catholic devotion, while another might claim that Walt Whitman was a classic mystic. Walt Whitman was an American poet, essayist, and journalist who is often celebrated as one of the most influential figures in American literature. He wrote about transcendence and unity, spiritual experience, the inner journey, and more. Then there's the person who insists all mysticism comes from the East and supports this with a strange example involving a magic trick with a mango stone that supposedly grows into a tree nearly instantly. After attending countless lectures, sermons, taking courses, and participating in discussions with well-meaning individuals, you might still find yourself frustrated and asking, what in the world is mysticism? I won't try to solve a problem that has puzzled many people before. Instead, this essay aims to encourage practical people to find the answer on their own. I must admit that this approach seems to encompass all the important aspects of the issue. It might not address every single detail, but it does cover the perspectives of visionaries, philosophers, people like Walt Whitman, and even the saints. Here is the definition. Mysticism is about connecting with what's truly real, or in other words, being in union with reality. A mystic is someone who has achieved awareness of this connection to some extent, or someone who's trying to achieve it and believes it is possible. Don't worry if this sentence seems confusing at first. You might be starting to wonder what is reality, a question you might not have thought about before, and it can be quite puzzling. Only mystics can answer it, and they use terms that only other mystics can truly grasp. So for now, let's set that aside. What's important to think about is this. The word union doesn't mean some rare and unimaginable thing. It's actually something you're doing, albeit in a vague and imperfect way, every moment you're aware. You do it more intensely and thoroughly in your most meaningful moments. To understand something, you have to connect with it, absorb it, and become a part of it. It reveals itself to you to the extent that you open yourself up to it. When we only half-heartedly engage with things, our understanding remains shallow. As an example, suppose you're learning a new language, such as Spanish. You decide to immerse yourself in the culture, spending several months living in a Spanish-speaking country. You actively participate in local activities, make friends with native speakers, and engage in everyday conversations. By fully immersing yourself in the language and culture, you connect with it, absorb it, and become a part of it. As a result, your understanding of the language deepens significantly, and you develop a high level of fluency. On the other hand, imagine you have an important exam coming up, but you procrastinated and only start studying the night before. You cram a massive amount of information into a few hours, but you're not fully engaged or absorbing the material. You're memorizing facts without truly understanding the underlying concepts. This is an example of half-hearted engagement, where your understanding remains shallow. You might pass the exam, but your knowledge retention is minimal, and the information is quickly forgotten after the test. Consider this perspective. A wise Sufi once likened visiting wise individuals to a way of escaping the anguish of feeling isolated from the world. True wisdom, according to this Sufi, arises from establishing connections with others. In contrast, ignorance manifests when one isolates themselves, passing judgment, and analyzing matters without genuinely immersing themselves in the experience. Because they fully embraced it, connected with it, patriots understand their country, artists understand their subjects, lovers understand their beloved, and saints understand their God in a way that's impossible for someone just observing from the outside. True understanding, which always involves a deep intuitive connection, is better explained by the senses of touch and taste, rather than by hearing and sight. To grasp this more fully, imagine you're trying to truly understand the concept of baking bread from scratch. To gain a deep, intuitive connection with the process, you decide to explore it using your senses of touch and taste. 1. Touch. You roll up your sleeves, knead the dough with your hands, and feel its texture change from sticky to smooth. You notice the dough's elasticity, and you become attuned to its responses to pressure and warmth. Through touch, you connect with the dough on a profound level, understanding how it transforms with your actions. 2. Taste. As the bread bakes in the oven, you savor the aroma filling the kitchen. When it's ready, you taste the freshly baked bread. You notice the crust's crispness, the softness of the interior, and the subtle flavors that have developed during the baking process. Your taste buds provide a direct connection to the bread's essence, allowing you to appreciate its nuances. In this example, the deep intuitive connection to the process of bread making is better explained by the senses of touch and taste, as they allow you to interact directly with the dough and experience the final product in a way that hearing and sight alone cannot convey. Certainly, analytical thinking often comes naturally after establishing that profound connection, as in the case of bread making. We've frequently convinced ourselves that this analytical aspect is the most crucial facet of comprehension, akin to the importance of cooking the bread after creating the dough. However, if we release this misguided notion and return to the core activities that fuel our mental kitchen, we'll recognize that the divergence between a mystic and a non-mystic doesn't solely revolve around being rational or a dreamer. Intellect versus intuition. The pivotal question that distinguishes them is this: amidst the wealth of information available, what will consciousness focus on? To which aspects of the universe will it genuinely connect, much like immersing oneself in the tactile and flavorful essence of freshly baked bread? It's well known that most people's thoughts don't connect them with the true nature of things, but with their own ideas and limited perspectives. When they casually use the word is, as in the reality is, it doesn't actually describe the reality of the things they think they're experiencing. To them, reality is like a pre-cooked meal, and they don't grasp the vibrant, wild, and fast-moving creature that was sacrificed to create it. They're content with what they call reality, even though it's just a bland dish compared to the lively true nature of things. To clarify this concept, imagine someone who has always lived in a bustling modern city and has never ventured into a pristine wilderness. They have seen nature documentaries and heard stories about the great outdoors, but their understanding of nature is largely limited to these second-hand sources. One day, they decide to take a weekend camping trip in a remote national park. As they set up their tent and start a campfire, they look around at the lush forest, the serene lake, and the starry night sky. They start to realize that what they're experiencing firsthand is far more vibrant, complex, and awe-inspiring than anything they've seen on a screen or heard about from others. In this scenario, the person's prior understanding of nature was like the prepackaged meal mentioned in the previous explanation. It was a simplified and limited concept based on indirect information. Their consciousness was so detached from actual experience that they didn't even realize they were missing out. They were happy enough with their superficial understanding, embellishing and consuming a lifeless version of reality. They were not what you'd call mystical. But sometimes, someone suggests to him that his understanding isn't as complete as he thinks. Philosophers in particular have a way of showing that his knowledge is often clumsy and surface level. They demonstrate that he frequently confuses his personal sensations with qualities he believes exist in the external world. He takes the few qualities like color, size, and texture that his mind can grasp and turns them into a label that represents the sum of his own experiences. This label is what he knows and connects with because it's something he's created. It's neat, flat, doesn't change much, and has clear boundaries. Something he can rely on. However, he forgets that other conscious beings have their own ways of perceiving reality. The way a fish experiences the sea, how a bee sees a flower, the complex sounds of the hedgerow as heard by a rabbit, the way light interacts with the eager face of a primrose, and the vastness of the landscape as understood by a woodlouse or an ant. All these experiences, which he can never truly understand, have just as much right to be considered real as his own limited and personal interpretation of things. When the city dweller has immersed himself in the actual wilderness, however, he can begin to grasp the true, dynamic, and wild nature of the environment, which is much more profound and authentic than any of his previous perceptions. Because we're uncomfortable with mysteries, we've chosen to live in a world of labels. We use these labels as our currency for understanding, often ignoring their symbolic nature and the wide range of values they can't fully represent. We usually don't try to connect with what's truly real, but occasionally something reminds us of the symbolic nature of these labels. A powerful emotion or an overwhelming experience of beauty, love, or pain can elevate our awareness to a different level. For a moment, we sense the difference between the tidy collection of separate objects and experiences we call the world and the vast, ever-changing reality of which thoughts, life, and energy are parts. A reality in which we live and move and have our being. Then we realize that our entire life is entangled with immense and living forces, which can be terrifying because they're unknown. Even the power in everyday things like geothermal heat, electricity or electric vehicles, or the incredible marvels of reproduction and growth are beyond our senses. We can only perceive their effects. The more profound level of life and energy that we associate with spiritual and emotional experiences, like love, agony, ecstasy, and adoration, remains hidden from us. We can only observe the symptoms and appearances. Our intellects can't grasp it, and our hearts can only sense it in sudden, overpowering moments. There's a richer, more profound life and a deeper understanding of our existence waiting for us right at our doorstep. But we're separated from it, unable to fully absorb it. Except for occasional moments, we hardly recognize its existence. Now we can begin to grasp the idea that mysticism is the art of union with reality. We understand that a poet like Whitman is considered a mystic because he has a deep connection with aspects of life deeper than what most of us experience. He's moved beyond the ordinary to reach the real. Similarly, a saint like Teresa claims mysticism because she attains union with the divine essence itself. A visionary becomes a mystic when their vision reveals a reality that goes beyond what the senses perceive. A philosopher turns into a mystic when they move beyond thought and directly apprehend truth. An active person becomes a mystic when they realize their actions are part of a greater activity. People like Blake, Plotinus, Joan of Arc, and John of the Cross are all connected by a common thread, but it's something the inquirer needs to understand for themselves. They all represent different expressions of the contemplative consciousness, a faculty inherent in all humans, though few bother to develop it. Their focus on life has transformed it, making it more vivid and detailed. As a result, they see a wider, more brilliant, and more significant world than what common sense typically perceives. This distinction between mystical and non-mystical individuals is like the story of eyes and no eyes. No eyes is solely focused on the fact that he must take a walk. He sees his journey as his movement along the road, which he intends to complete as efficiently and comfortably as possible. He doesn't care to know what it might be like on either side of the hedges. He ignores the caress of the wind until it threatens to take his hat. He walks steadily, avoiding muddy puddles, but oblivious to the light they reflect. On the other hand, eyes also takes the walk, but experiences it as a continuous revelation of beauty and wonder. The sunlight delights him, the wind exhilarates him, and even the effort of the journey brings him joy. Magical moments surround him along the roadside, and hidden fields call out to him with greetings. The rich world around him occupies the forefront of his awareness, constantly revealing new secrets with each step. When No Eyes hears about Eyes' experiences, he often refuses to believe they took the same route. He might think his companion floated in the air or had pleasant hallucinations. Unless we convince him to look for himself, we'll never change his mind. So what we're talking about here is a practical kind of mysticism for everyday people. It's about training your hidden abilities, waking up your tired awareness, freeing yourself from the constraints of surface appearances, and focusing on new layers of reality. This way, you can start to perceive the universe that spiritual artists always try to reveal to everyone. This level of mystical understanding, often called ordinary contemplation by experts, is something everyone can do. Without it, you're not fully aware or truly alive. It's a natural human activity that doesn't require the extraordinary abilities or profound experiences of mystical saints and philosophers, just like music doesn't require the creative genius of a great musician. The beautiful things in the world aren't only meant for artists and poets. Although they might find deeper meaning in them, everyone can experience the real world and connect with it to some extent. The level of connection depends on your desire and how strong and pure it is. As The Cloud of Unknowing, an earlier book by Underhill, suggests, the heavenly spiritual realm is just as close to us as it is far away, in every direction. If you truly desire to be in that spiritual realm, you're already there in a spiritual sense. The path to it isn't about physical steps, it's about your desires. So no one, no matter his age, location, or life experience, is condemned to a limited one-track way of seeing the world, as Blake called single vision. That's when you're constantly focused on the continuous stream of sensory experiences that your mind creates, separating you from the real world. The only way you'd be stuck in that state is if you're too proud, lazy, or stubborn to break free from it.